Page 28, Caberet. This is going to be interesting. This is one of those pieces that's not a piano piece, but it's been arranged for piano, and it doesn't really fall under the fingers very well. For instance, the first line in the right hand. Take a look at that. You have this fingering, the first measure, and then in the second measure, immediately you got to go to here. It's not a real good pianistic way of doing it. It's one of those things we run into when we are playing an arrangement that's not piano music. So you'll have to figure out how you want to handle it. I don't know of a good way of doing this. Practice this to here. And get good at that move. It's a matter of knowing where you're at, where you want to go, and which fingers are involved, and you work on that. Slowly at first, gradually building it up. This piece is kind of a bouncy piece anyway, alright? So you don't have to connect all the notes. They don't give you staccatos and all that. This is part of the interpretation part, because they're not giving you a slur either. That means you're free to do pretty much what you want. So you kind of bounce along. Listen to some recordings and you'll see it's a bouncy piece. And this works out okay with the fingering then. We can take advantage of that bounciness to help us get our hands around without messing up the music too much. At the bottom of page 28, now I'm talking right hand, okay? First measure is here. I recommend for the second half note, the D, that you use third finger. And then, so its thumb isn't doing everything. You can use thumb if you want, but then in the first ending, okay, you have the first chord in the first measure, this first ending. Going to the second measure of the first ending, B flat E. The A is tied. You don't play the A again, hold it down. Kind of important. In the second ending, the last measure on page 28, they're saying 1, 2. I don't like that. You do it if you want to. We have the same pattern in a lot of places. It's, you're crossing over the thumb and then going up. I recommend you use third finger on the first one. On that. You get that on page 29 in a few places. I'm not going to point them all out, but you get it too. Okay. The only other thing in the right hand I'll point out is the last measure on the bottom of page 29. That is an 8 VA, so instead of here, you play it here. That's the right hand. We'll talk about the left. Speaking of the left hand, let's do it now. How? Notice the fingering right at the beginning, third finger. Reason is because you're in this position. Okay? You want the octave, all right? So just stay there until the end of the line when your fifth finger goes up. On page 28, third line down, third measure. Careful here. We got overlapping stuff going on. The C is a dotted half note. Hold it down for 3 counts. And you have a quarter rest above it. That means we got 2 voices going on here, and both voices are being tracked. The bottom voice is the C. Let's just take that voice by itself. You got this for 3 counts, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the D is for 3 counts because it's a quarter note tied to a half note. That's 3 counts. 1, 2, and then the E and the F. See, the stem's going down, that means the bottom voice. So if I play the bottom voice by itself, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an F sharp because there's an F sharp earlier in that measure, so it's an F sharp. The top voice starts with a quarter rest, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, rest, 2, rest, rest. And you put them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So work that out so all those notes are held down as long as they're supposed to, because even though you got the pedal going, it's important that the fingers do what they got to do. They do the work they need to. The pedal is going to mess up the rests, but the point is you lift the fingers up during those rests. In the last line, left hand, first measure, they're saying a 2-1, a 1 on the C, and another 1 on the A. Ugh. I suggest you do a 2-2, then a 1 on the D, 2, 3 on the B flat, and then a 1 on the A. You're using 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 type fingering. You have to be in position for the third finger on the F because you're going to repeat back up to the top. Okay. Page 29, second line, second measure. You're in this position to start with. I recommend for the first half note you use a 5. Second one you use a 3-2. So you can go into there for the next measure. On page 29 of the coda, the first 2 lines, we've already talked about this left hand. You got to watch, make sure you're holding all those notes down the right amount of time. In the third and fourth measures of the coda, on the first line there, the first note is a whole note. You got to hold it down for the whole measure. Next measure. So hold them down as long as they're supposed to go. Last line, left hand, first note is a half note. Hold it down. As you play the C, lift it up on the D. Lift them both up on the D. Now they're saying a 2-1 on the C sharp. You could do a 3-2. Doesn't matter at that point because you got to go down for the thumb. And they're saying a 3 on the F. Doesn't matter. You got to go down for the last F. It's an 8 VA under it. So the last measure, you want to do the first with the third finger. You still got to go down. That's fine. Oh, it's all right. You have a quarter rest in there, so you're fine. As far as the pedaling goes, I recommend you just pedal it the way they're suggesting. However, I think there's an error in the music, and I want to talk about that. On page 29 on the coda, the third line down the coda, they're not indicating any pedaling at all. And I think that's an omission. I think they do want it pedaled. They want it pedaled similarly to what you're doing on page 28 when you're getting that same type of stuff. I think they want it legato. I would pedal this, the whole line, I would pedal legato. Change it on each measure. Okay, so it's here. Change it right there on the first measure of the coda. Change it on after you play the last notes in the measure. So change it at the measure line. Overlap the pedal, of course, except for the first measure of the coda. Change it on the fourth beat. After you play the fourth beat chord, change it. And on the next line down, again, change it after you play the chord on the fourth beat. Because you're changing the harmony there, and that's where we want to change the pedal here. Other than that, just do the pedaling the way they're saying to. I would not pedal the last 4 measures at all, because it really messes it up. If I pedaled it, it sounds like this. Ugh. So I'll just leave it off. I think it's much better without the pedal on the last line, the last 4 measures. I recommend when you play this with me, you do it one hand at a time so you can hear them, because it gets really tricky. So get the hands good one at a time before you go putting them together. And remember, we want to hear the melodies. So the melody needs to be brought out above everything else. And in this piece, the melody is in the top line, the top note of the right hand, pretty much all the time. So yeah. bring out the melody. Having said all that, let's try this out. Now, since there's no page turn in this, we'll just go ahead and play it like it's written, more or less, except we're going to go slow. So we're going to take both endings at the bottom of page 28. All right. After the first ending, we go back to the beginning and we play page 28 again. And then we go over to the first 2 lines of page 29. And then there's a DC DC Al coda thing. DC means go back to the beginning. So we're going to go back to page 28 again to the beginning. The sign is the circle with the crosshairs, and that's on page 28. 3rd line down, it's between 2nd and 3rd measure. So after you finish the 2nd measure, we immediately jump to the coda, which is basically straight across, and then we play the coda to the end. And that's what we're going to do here. So let's try this out and see what happens. Slowly. Right hand, left hand, foot's on the pedal. I'll give us 4 counts. 1, 2, ready, go. rest.